Ben Franklin was a liar. A cartoony liar, because when he inspired America to unite against Britain with his snake doodle, the task wasn't join or die, it was join and die. Die a lot, like just you're all gonna die. You. Because despite what your teachers told you, everybody in the American Revolution spent most of their time cheating death. Death by any of four shocking things. Here's number one, smallpox. It's the disease that almost ended the revolution before it began. Smallpox is a catchy, resilient nightmare virus. It rampaged worldwide until the 1980s. It killed a third of its victims. Silver lining, a smallpox survivor stays immune for life. Extra silver lining, experimental smallpox inoculation began in the late 1700s, kind of in time for the revolution. Terrifying doom lining. Smallpox is even deadlier when large groups of people mingle their unfamiliar germs with new large groups of people, like say when the 13 colonies assembled an army from 13 different colonies. According to historian Elizabeth Fenn's amazing Pax Americana, a devastating smallpox epidemic was George Washington's real opponent for most of the war. It got so bad, Washington had to plan his entire strategy around smallpox. When he recaptured British-occupied Boston, he sent 1,000 smallpox immune soldiers into the city first to make sure the germ coast was clear, which it wasn't. Washington also marched his troops in separate columns based on their disease situations, and he couldn't use them effectively till they were all inoculated against smallpox several years after the war started. And smallpox might have reshaped North America more than the Revolution did. The disease saved Canada from being our 14th state. Patriot troops besieged British Quebec early in the war, and the Yankees would have taken it over if they didn't keep dying of smallpox faster than reinforcements could arrive to help them, and also die of smallpox. A lot of pox. From 1775 to 1782, about 25,000 men died for the Continental Army, only some of them from bullets. In that same time period, North America lost at least 130,000 people to the smallpox epidemic. Scores of colonial families died off, the Cherokee and Creek societies in what's now the American Southeast became too depopulated to keep white settlers out, the Hopi culture of the Southwest almost disappeared, and as Lewis and Clark traveled to the Pacific 20 years later, they found Native American tribes that were still catching the smallpox George Washington grappled with. Kind of sparked by accident. But hey, luckily that was the only way the American Revolution killed a lot of Native Americans. Number two, the Six Nations Civil War. Ah, shoot, really? Out of the way. Hey. Six Nations, also known as the Iroquois Confederation, dominated the Great Lakes for centuries, uniting 6 tribes into one participatory democracy. But as you know, large participatory democracies can fall into civil wars, dividing their people and uglifying their pickup trucks. And the American Revolution splintered the Six Nations. The Oneida and Tuscarora mostly sided with the Patriots against the pro-British Seneca, Cayuga, Mohawk, and Onondaga. The Battle of Oriskany in 1777 pitted Loyalist Americans and Iroquois against Patriot Americans and Iroquois. It was one of the bloodiest battles of the entire war. The Patriots also surprise invaded Seneca and Mohawk lands in 1779. 4 Continental Army brigades you would have assumed needed to fight redcoats spent an entire campaign wasting village after Iroquois village. And when the British and Americans negotiated a peace treaty in 1783, both sides left Native Americans out of the process. Neither side rewarded the Six Nations peoples who helped them. Americans took more and more Six Nations lands. Also, don't forget the smallpox stuff. Anyway, that's all the worst murder surprises of the American Revolution. Number 3, Congress starved its own army. So that's what that feels like. As you've learned by existing, it sucks to have to do paperwork, pay for stuff, or think ahead. However, people tend to do that anyway in critical situations, like planning a wedding, planning a divorce, or divorcing the King of England. But somehow, nobody bothered to feed, clothe, or fund George Washington's army until the end of the Revolutionary War. Britain should have won the thing just by printing uniforms and given a crap. Because out of the Continental Congress's 65 members, only 5 of them had British military experience, and only one of those guys had experience specific to supplying an army. None of those guys had any interest in working together, and John Adams convinced the rest of Congress that their dumb-wigged brains should be in charge of the Army's supply chain, because letting George Washington pick his own guy to do it would give General Washington kingly power. And food. But, you know, mostly the king thing. Congress picked a logistics guy for Washington named Thomas Mifflin. Mifflin was terrible at that job, then lost the job, then got the job back because no one else wanted to do it. He openly didn't bother to do any work starting in July of 1777, didn't get fired for kind of quitting, and resigned anyway in November of 1777, just in time for Washington's troops to die of malnutrition and not having shoes in their winter at Valley Forge. They'd also been dying of those problems before Valley Forge, because Congress tackled each military resource request by forming a new emergency committee to handle it. It was like if your roommate held an angry house meeting for every dirty dish. And it wasn't me. I rinse cereal bowls, Craig! Without congressional help, George Washington spent the post-Valley Forge years forcing his best general to organize supply wagon trains instead of commanding troops, because George couldn't find the other patriot with managerial skills till the second to last year of the war. Till then, the Continental Army pretty much self-supplied, and as historian E. Wayne Karp tells it in To Starve the Army at Pleasure, Washington's troops self-supplied by robbing their fellow colonists up and down the eastern seaboard, with and without Washington's permission. The Army called it civilian impressment, and the colonists called it stealing our horses, wagons, clothes, and food till we starve to death. Stop it. It happened so often it almost sparked a sub-revolution against Congress's revolution, and no one wants to be in a hungrier, wiggier inception. But hey, starving in the field beats getting captured by the enemy, so not so bad. Number 4, Britain's Hellhole prison ships. I don't know what I expected. The British captured and held New York City for almost the whole war. A lot of people don't know that. And anchored unventilated prison barges off of Manhattan, where 12,000 Patriot POWs died. This part's gross, let's just end the video. Because they had to live on whichever rats they found on board, and ate raw. Video's over, stop talking, video's over. Then when they ran out of rats, they ate the lice off their own bodies. I said video's over. Let's dance, motherfucker! You like stand-up? Come see the Cracked Stand-Up Show. It's happening January 26th at Meltdown Comics in Los Angeles. If you want to see amazing comedians, including our own Teresa Lee, go to nerdmeltla.com/tickets. And if you want to see this brick wall all by itself, keep watching.